Understanding behavioral incentives is a sign of personal maturity as well as a sign of mature public policy. I don't know what age you got to when you started to figure out that there's a lot of stuff going on in your mind that you could actually control. You can change your attitude about things, you can push through pain, you can push through discomfort, do stuff you don't want to do, all that. That's a certain sign of maturity, of course. But then there's another level where you sort of hit your own limitations. You realize, I'm always going to be this way. In order to be successful in life, I need to understand myself and understand where I just can't will myself past a certain point. And so I have to actually do things in my physical environment that change that. The biggest example of this is, of course, an addict of sorts, where you're addicted to some substance, you quit it through sheer will or whatever else, but you realize you're just never going to be able to be around the substance. You're never going to be able to have one drink. You're never going to be able to hang around people that do this kind of thing. In order to remain successful and happy and fulfilled in life, you have to physically remove yourself, so to speak, from these kinds of distractions and temptations. Or you just won't be able to have good creative output in your job or whatever unless you have a good night's sleep, have a good coffee, or you change your environment every once in a while, or external factors like that you would normally think you could sort of will yourself past, but you can't. Eventually, you have to understand that you as a person respond directly to incentives. And if there's incentives to do bad things or things that you're not wanting to do, then you're always going to fall for them. Not every single time, but on average, on the long run, they will always be a pitfall for you. So you need to change those incentives to change your own behavior. You're sort of a slave to your own incentives, which sounds kind of sad to say like that, but some people, really are. In fact, everyone really is to a certain extent. The same thing goes to a certain extent, oddly enough, with setting a public policy. A lot of people try to think, okay, well, we want this outcome here. We're going to just say, oh, this is going to turn out this way. We're going to give people money for this. We're going to ban them from doing that, or do whatever is out there. A lot of times it just goes through this lens of ignorance of what will the actual outcome be of, well, if you provide these incentives, then people will do that thing instead. Like, for example, thinking, oh, people should get paid more. Let's set a higher minimum wage. And then when you do that, you just expect all the employers that are paying this to pay the exact same people more money, and then they'll just find a way to get the money from somewhere else. Instead of, well, according to these incentives, first off, you're going to not hire as many people. You're going to make the people you have hired do more for that exact same bit of money. You're going to take fewer risks on other people. You're going to especially automate. Even if you're one of these business owners who in their personal political life decides, you know what, I'm going to campaign for a higher minimum wage. I don't care. As soon as you succeed in getting that law enacted, even though this is what you want, you think in your own mind that if this happens, everyone is going to start paying their own workers more for the exact same thing. You go straight back to your business and respond to economic incentives by automating things, by hiring fewer people, by hiring less risky people, by squeezing more work out of those same people that now you have to pay more for. And you basically are a slave to your own economic incentives. And that's the way, unfortunately, the world works. And so mature public policy doesn't live in la land of, well, I'm just going to I want this thing to happen, so I'm going to make a law, then just assume it's going to work. Doesn't really work like that. People respond to incentives. They act in their own economic best self-interest, and they always will. And that's how we survived as a species. People figured out how to win, how to go towards what will make them better off. Because if they didn't, they would have died, and we wouldn't be here today. So people will always do that. And if you construct some sort of a policy around wishful thinking, it's not going to work. What you should do is construct some sort of a policy around what actually works, around what people will actually do. Give people proper incentives for productive behavior. Don't just assume, well, they'll do this, they won't do that. And then always, of course, see what is not seen after you just see what is seen. Like, oh, well, this will cause fewer people to do this, but it will also cause more people to do that thing around. Being at peace with your own personal limitations and how you respond to incentives in your environment is a huge sign of personal growth and maturity. And being aware of these incentives in other people and shaping public policy around how people act is a sign of political maturity. Unfortunately, wherever you are in the world, we're run by the politically immature. And unfortunately, being run at all is going to produce this kind of a thing. So the more you can start taking personal self-ownership, the better. And the more things will just start to naturally fall in place around our natural economic behavioral incentives. Think about that one for a little while.